All right, everybody, we are live. I'm counting here. Do we have a quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you see me?
Yes, I see Alderman Fisk, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Revelle, Alderman Rainey, myself. So we have a quorum. We're missing Alderman Nguyen and Alderman Simmons. Okay. So if it's all right with everyone, why don't I call the meeting to order since we do have a quorum present. And I'll start with the first item on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the regular Planning and Development Committee meeting of March 9th, 2020.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? There's no opposition, so we've got one thing under our belt. All right, so our next item is, excuse me, I just got 2 screens going here. Our next item is public comment. I'm not quite sure, Johanna, can you help me understand how we're going to do that?
So my understanding is I have people in the waiting room and we'll let them in to make public comment. I sent you a note. If you want to keep time and let me know when time's up, we can move people out of the waiting room or back up into the waiting room once they're done or let them know.
Okay, how many do we have?
So right now it looks like we have a few. The first one I'm seeing is Mike Vasilko, but I'm not seeing him in the virtual waiting room right now.
Are we going to do this 3 minutes a speaker or how many?
It's at your discretion as the chair.
Why don't we do that? I mean, we don't have like 20 people, right? Like let's still. It
looks like it's 5. I'm just going through the list that the clerk provided, and it looks. Actually, I'm not even seeing anybody right now signed up.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if they may just end up being comments made at City Council.
All right.
I don't see Greg Sorensen. Hold on. Oh, there's Alderman Nguyen. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody here who signed up for it on the list that signed up for public comments.
All right. So there's nobody in the waiting room.
There are people in the waiting room, but they're associated with the developers.
Okay.
Johanna.
Yeah.
There is a gentleman, Greg Sorensen, who was wondering if we could read his comment from the Google Sheet.
Okay. Would you like to do that, or do you want me to do it?
If you could, that'd be great.
Sure. All right. So this is from Greg Sorensen, and this is his comment. As a 25-year Evanston resident, I support the current proposal for an office development at 605 Davis Street. It is an appealing development and an attractive solution to a long-standing downtown eyesore. That was the comment. So that's one of the signups. The other was Bob Frocher and Libby Hill. I'm not seeing either of them in the meeting right now in the waiting room.
Hello, this is Melissa. I am in the meeting, but my video is not connecting. So this has happened to me a few times, and IT and I have worked on it, but I think I'm just going to be an M tonight.
Okay.
I wish that happened to me.
And I am not wearing my pajamas or sweats. I want you all to know.
The record will so reflect. All right. So Johanna, you have no other.
I have nobody else in the waiting room right now. I have Libby Hill who said she was going to phone in, but I haven't seen that person. I don't see anything as a phone in option here.
Johanna, I did give her the call-in information, and it looks like she's not in the waiting room. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's nobody but developers in the waiting room right now.
Okay. She did leave I don't know if you want to.
I can read the comment.
Maybe read the comment for her.
Yeah. So this is Libby Hill. I'm representing Bird Friendly Evanston regarding the development at 605 Davis. We are pleased to note that number 5 under public benefits indicates that the building will be bird friendly.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no further public comment from anybody in the waiting room, should we just move into items for consideration?
I can. There's a couple more that I guess I could just read just
Sure,
so.
please.
Sorry. So this next person is from Mark Daniel, and actually, I'm sorry. This is something for City Council. So I think, and then the only last one was, again, Elizabeth Collins. Still not seeing anybody in the waiting room. I would like to add my support at 605 Davis Street. It would be nice to continue development of our downtown and not see a vacant lot.
And Johanna, I did send invites to Mike Vasoko, Carl Klein, and Elizabeth Collins for them to join, but as you mentioned, it looks like they're not in the waiting room at this time.
Just developers still.
Okay, then why don't we move into our items for consideration? And if people join, we can figure out an equitable way to get them included. All right, so item P1 is approval of application for Home Community Housing Development Organization funds to construct a coach house for affordable rental by Housing Opportunity Development Corporation. And this is for action. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, okay, Alderman Simmons, thank you. All right, so Sarah Flax, is this your show?
It is. Thank you, Chair Zuckerman, members of the committee. The Housing and Homelessness Commission looked at this application and recommends approval along with staff. Every year we get 15% of our home funds that have to be used with a CHODO. We have 2 CHODOs that function in Evanston right now. HODC is one, and the other is Community Partners for Affordable Housing. Our last CHODO project was with SEPA, and so we are recommending this CHODO project, which is actually possible due to council's approval of allowing coach houses to be built on properties other than single-family homes. It makes excellent use of an existing property. Many years ago, this property had a coach house on it. Sadly, that coach house had no foundation, so it had to be torn down. I mean, it literally had no foundation. But right now, there is no parking, off-street parking on the site. So not only would we get an additional housing unit, but there would be 2 off-street parking spaces for the 3 units, all of which are affordable. The total budget from the city would be up to $190,000. Obviously, if the project came in not needing all that money, it wouldn't get paid out. But it would use the 3 years of CHODO reserve funding from our home funds. So that gets us, it's similar to what we did with our last project for SEPA, where we put all of the 3 years of CHODO reserve into one project. We are not able to layer those funds in effectively with any other sources of funding because of the home regulations regarding CHODO projects. They have to be able to be owned and managed by a CHODO, and in the event that the CHODO were to not continue to exist, the city has to have the ability to move the ownership of the project to another active CHODO, and that's really hard to do when you have financing with banks or anybody else. It would be a 2-bedroom unit, and the other 2 units that are on the site are 3-bedroom units. And I think Richard Koenig is in the waiting room if we have questions for him as well.
All right, Alderman Simmons, and then Alderman Ravel.
If the developer had a presentation, I would wait. Otherwise, I would go ahead with my comments.
I need to recuse myself from this item discussion because I'm a member of the Evanston Development Cooperative, which would be building the coach house.
Understood. Thank you, Alderman Ravel. Richard, do you have a presentation, or should Alderman Simmons go forward?
I don't have much of a presentation. I think Sarah gave a good summary of the project. if there's any specific questions, I think most of the information was included in the packet. I'm happy to, I'd rather just address questions unless there's something you really want me to talk about.
Thank you. So you're right. Sarah did do a great overview. I just wanted to point out that we've taken every step towards supporting a project like this in the recent approval of accessory dwellings. We have been working with Evanston Development Cooperative and looking forward to them proving their model of sustainable, affordable in the way of accessory dwellings. It's going to be restricted to at least 60% AMI. And there has not been any pushback from the neighbors. I've been in touch with them. The developer has added affordable housing, has been a responsible and attentive and engaged developer, attending neighborhood meetings and weighing in on how their organization might support the vision of the neighborhood. And the funds are restricted. We couldn't use them for, I'm sure we could use them for some other purpose, but they're restricted to be used with the CHODO. They comply. And I'm hoping that this is something that we can support. I think it would be a great example and model to show to other homeowners that are considering taking advantage of our new zoning approval to expand accessory dwellings on multifamily units.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Racine. Does anybody else have questions? If not, I'll just, Sarah, you address this, and Robin or Alderman Racine, you brought this up, but I think it's a question we have to ask anytime we spend money going forward. This isn't money that we could allocate for any other purpose.
Right.
This money is for this use only.
Correct. Home has a lot of restrictions, and this has to be used for a construction project. We can't even use it for tenant-based rental assistance, for example.
Okay.
Notable reserve is very, very restricted.
All right, understood. Thank you very much, both of you for your presentation. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? All right, so that item passes. Our next item is item P3, which is ordinance 49020, a special use for a planned development and drive-through facility for a financial institution at 605 Davis Street. The Plan Commission and staff recommend adoption of ordinance 49020 for approval of a special use for a planned development and drive-through facility for a financial institution. The proposal includes the following site development allowances: floor area ratio of 13.02, where 4.5 is allowed and 8.0 may be requested as a maximum site development allowance. 2, proposed building height of 220 feet, where 85 feet, excluding parking, is allowed, and 220 may be requested as a site development allowance. 3, yeah.
For a construction project, we can't even use it for tenant-based.
Oh, that's sorry. Somebody's all right. I'll keep going. Item 339 parking spaces where 420 are required. 4, a 15-foot ziggurat setback is proposed at 29-foot height along Davis, where a 40-foot ziggurat setback is required above 42-foot height. 5, a 0-foot ziggurat setback is proposed along the east interior lot line at 29-foot height, where a 25-foot ziggurat setback is required above 42-foot height. And 6, a 0-foot ziggurat setback is proposed along the west interior side lot line at 29-foot height, where a 25-foot ziggurat setback is required above 42-foot height. This is for introduction. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there a presentation or how do we want to proceed? Johanna, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I'm adding the people that are associated with this project. I think we skipped P2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
But if you want to just take it out of this order.
Yeah, why don't we, since we got everyone here, why don't we do P3 and then we'll go back to P2. My apologies.
Matt and Carrie, can you confirm that I have everybody in the meeting now that is part of your team?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then who was going to share the screen?
Me. Hey, Longo.
All right, let's see. Okay. Luke, are you there? How do I make him see his screen?
Yes, I'm here. Is there an option to, if you hover over him, does it say make presenter or?
It says, all I have is make host.
Should I just try to share the screen?
Why don't you try to share the screen? Let's try that.
Sure.
How about now? Can everyone see
There we
my
go.
screen?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
That was easy.
Yeah, it's really big, Jay. At least it is
Yeah.
for me.
So then before you get started, Alderman Sufford, how much time did you want to allow for this?
How much time do you think that you need? If we could do this in under 10 minutes, that would be ideal. If you feel like you need more.
Yeah, it timed just a little bit more than that this morning as we ran through it.
Go right ahead, step on the gas.
Okay. I'm Kerry Dixon. I'm with Vermilion Development. On the call with us today are Matt Havey from my office, as well as Jay Longo, the architect from SCB. In terms of the project team for this development, and Jay, you're going to move the slides forward, right?
Yep.
Vermilion and Campbell Coyle are partnered with an Evanston-based property owner, Remark Corporation, Martha Cook, as well as Greg DeStefano, who's an Evanston resident and developer from GDS Consultants. On the design team, we also have Kettle Camp and Kettle Camp, a landscape architect based in Evanston, as well as Louis Abuna from KLOA, who's on the call with us today in case there are questions for him. The site is located in between Chicago and Orrington, right in the middle of downtown Evanston. It's the Chase Bank drive-through and the vacant lot immediately to the east of that, adjacent to the university building. This is in the core of Evanston where density should be encouraged. And we have a set of guiding principles that we've been working with as we've gone through the planning process for this building. The first one is that we want to create a building worthy of this significant site, a beautiful building, a sustainable building, a forward-thinking building. It's also bringing a use to downtown Evanston, which will strengthen the downtown. It's been almost 20 years since the last new office building was developed downtown. And in that time period, tenant expectations have changed. Technology, sustainability, amenities are now, different than they were 20 years ago. And Evanston needs a new office building in order to be competitive with other markets as companies are looking for office space. As I mentioned, the community process has been very robust. We met with Design Evanston many months ago. They provided feedback into the building, which came into the design. We've had multiple conversations with Bird Friendly Evanston, also incorporated into the design, and then also the guidance from Evanston staff. And a community process like this is always good when it makes a building better, and that's definitely what's happened in this case. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jay so that he can go through the design of the building.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jay Longo. I'm a design partner at SCB, Solomon Cordwell Benz. I'm going to take you through our thinking on the design and the aspects of the building. So as you're well familiar with the site, it's a very good location in the downtown urban core. It's within a quarter-mile walk of the Metro and CTA. So it's very, very ideal for a transit-oriented type of development right into the urban downtown core, along with the other high-rise office and residential uses. It is a D3 zone, so it's meant for higher density. And we just have a couple quick photos of, you're very familiar with the site, but across the street and along the sort of Major Davis, you have that 2-3-story kind of podium buildings, and then we have the Chase Bank and its plaza to the west. And then, of course, our university building, which is right along the corner of Davis in Chicago. And we really took a lot of cues with this building. It's a beautiful building, great example of turn-of-the-century architecture for Evanston, and it set a lot of the design rules for our building. starting with the base. The base of the building is really meant to accentuate the pedestrian scale of the downtown. So we really wanted to draw the datum line, the height of our podium. So there's only one level of parking in the office building, and we did that very intentionally so that we could draw that parapet line across the entire site, and then create a reveal between the university building and our building with the entry plaza to the office building itself. The other thing that we looked at was the sort of average footprint size of the buildings across the street. Again, that side of the south side of Davis, great example of kind of 1920s storefront in Evanston. And what we wanted to do is break down the tower mass into these basic building blocks, which are already evident in the context of downtown, and then extrude those blocks with a couple different rules. One is to have the taller blocks and masses toward the north and the west, and then the shorter ones stepping down toward the entry and the corner of Davis and Chicago. And we did that very intentionally with only one meeting the ground, which is the one that addresses the entry off of the plaza. And by doing that, then we create a couple different horizontal zones, one being, our plaza, another one being the amenity deck up on the third floor, which is the main amenity deck for the office building itself, and then two additional terraces at the top of the building, one that gives a view south and east, and the other one north and west. The other thing that we did, my mother lives just down the street on Chicago Avenue. I'm very familiar with the downtown. It's got a really nice, rich history of masonry, 2 to 5 story buildings. So we did a lot of sort of contextual study of the different storefronts and how to articulate the base of the building so that it continues that wonderful pedestrian scale of downtown Evanston. And by creating that reveal between the university building and our building, we actually make a storefront scale that's not as long and at the correct height. So here you can see that we're pulling that line directly across from the university building. We're using a dog-tooth corbel course to hide the parking, so none of the parking level is actually visible from the street at all. And then a really tall storefront of about 15 feet that moves in and out to define the different retail areas of about 4,500 square feet on the ground floor. The other thought was that we would, for the Chase drive-through, reducing it from 7 lanes to 1, we would actually articulate that no differently than the openings for the retail, and we did that intentionally to, for the future case that drive-through being abandoned, we could actually just absorb it back into one of the retail spaces, get rid of the curb cut, and then it would just have the full retail experience sometime in the future. Just a couple quick notes on the materials. We're using a long style brick, which is very evident in downtown Evanston, a Norman style, very thin brick. And we're using it in the similar color for the university building to kind of draw that comparison and contrast between the existing building of the university and ours. We're using 2 different metal panel shades and then a high performance glass on the tower above. So here's the shot from Chicago Avenue looking south. So here you can see where the 2 buildings are separated. The other nice thing about separating the buildings is that every retail suite gets a corner. So you're seeing actually into the retail suite from Chicago Avenue. And then when you're coming up from the south, you'll see the other corner of the retail suite. Here you can see the entry plaza. The other kind of feature that we did was a terrace trellis for our amenity deck that serves 2 purposes. One that severely reduces the downdraft wind effects on the pedestrian zone from the building, and then it just provides shade and a really nice atmosphere, sort of enlivening the street edge. So here you get activity during office hours up on the 3rd floor, as well as the pedestrian experience down on the ground floor. Looking from the south, here again you get a retail corner, and you can see the trellis you get about 15 feet of decks going across the entire length of the retail zone. And then our entry plaza, we're planning a green wall along the university facade to dress up the sort of common brick side of that building. And the other thing that we're doing is we're providing about 150 parking stalls for bikes and working with planning staff. We located actually the bike entrance not off the alley, but off the main entry of the building. So whether you approach this building on foot or on riding your bike, you can use that entry plaza, get into the lockers and up into the tower. Just a quick detail of the retail storefront. We spent a lot of time making sure that it moved in and out, that you actually see the brick return on the inside, and you have these nice deep entries and a lot of glass along the storefront. Quick landscape plan showing 4 street trees here again, our plaza in front. We have 1 lane of drive-through in and 2 lanes out for the ATM. We spent a lot of time with staff creating the proper signage to protect the bike lane and tactile warning strips along the pedestrian zone. And our ground floor plan showing again the lobby, the bike room access from that you can get into your stalls and up into the tower. We have 2 loading berths, recycling and trash, all off of the alley, along with our parking entry and exit is off the alley. Quick thing on our parking floor, again, it's only 1 floor. We have 39 parking stalls. Working with the Planning Commission, we actually added 2 more ADA stalls to provide more than code, given the different types of population that might be using the building. And we also are providing electric vehicle stations up on this level. Just a quick axon view showing it in context. Here you can see the relative heights of the other office building and residential buildings around. So we're shorter than the Chase building by just almost about 20 feet. And a couple of axon drawings just showing the building completely from the street view. We worked pretty hard to get these different volumes to be articulated in different ways. And the only one that meets the ground, again, is the one that's calling out for the entry. So this is a view from the sort of the south looking north. You can see the sort of covered terrace on one side of the building and open terrace on the other. This is looking up Davis Street. Again, you get that covered terrace view and the retail corner.
All right, we're at 11 minutes. Is there?
Yep, I'm just about done here. Okay. One other just last thing is we met with Bird Friendly Evanston. We are providing bird friendly glass from 41'6" and lower. So the ground floor retail has bird friendly glass along with our amenity deck. And we're also doing bird friendly glass railings at the top of the building. So I'll turn it back over to Carrie.
We get just a couple more slides, Alderman. To wrap up the presentation, I want to summarize the economic benefits and the public benefits of the development. Evanston tends to focus on public benefits a lot, but I think it's important to also realize the economic benefits that come along with this project. Inherent in this development are job creation and municipal revenue things which will benefit Evanston for years to come. And, I think both of them need to be considered. So in this slide, we have job creation that happens during construction, 450 jobs, 30 full-time equivalent new jobs in the project when it's finished. We're bringing 950 office workers to downtown when the building is complete and occupied. There's an incremental tax revenue increase of about $1.3 million, $1 million in building permit fees, as well as $175,000 in sales tax revenue. There's also the urban planning goals. This project meets a lot of the objectives of Evanston's downtown plan, creating a vibrant, walkable downtown. And the primary one in here is about the drive-through, reducing the drive-through and making sure that it's future-proof so that if it's ever not going to be used for a banking use, it will be incorporated into the retail on the ground floor and disappear. And that's something that's documented in the draft of the ordinance. We also obviously have the public benefits. They fall into two main categories, financial benefits as well as sustainable benefits. Again, we tried to create benefits, public benefits that are tangible, that people will realize that are happening. And we also tried to balance our public benefits so that they are improving the site as well as improving the area around the site, as well as Evanston in the whole. So, in the financial category, Jay mentioned the parking arrangement. That's a win-win. It was a significant improvement to the design of the building, as well as producing almost $200,000 in revenue to Evanston's parking garage income. And we're also focusing on local hiring. We're talking about hiring five Evanston residents during construction and offering 30% of the permanent jobs to Evanston residents. The sustainability category is non-code required items. The bird-friendly features have been talked about. Also, we're going to be working with Collective Resource, which is Evanston's composting partner. They're going to be working in the building and being able to provide that as a benefit to the building. And so in closing, I think that, we need to consider the millions of dollars of economic benefits through job creation and tax revenue, and also think about the public benefits that this development brings to the city. Between that and the way this building aligns with the city's stated urban planning goals, I think it ends up being a win-win for the city. Thank you. So that's it for our presentation.
Alderman Sufferton, there's no further people in the waiting room for public comment for this item.
Guys, I'll ask him.
Is Tom locked up for everybody else, or is it just me?
Yes.
Everybody else.
Okay.
Luke, are you there?
Does anybody have me? Hello?
No.
I can hear
Now
you.
you're back.
Okay. So I'll just read from the memo. Unless somebody else has questions, I'll go first. It says during design project review committee meetings, staff shared concerns regarding the extent of public benefits presented at that meeting for the proposed development, as several items listed in that summary of public benefits or items that are required by ordinance.
All right. We seem to have lost the Alderman
Tom.
Sufferton. You there?
But are you not hearing me?
We
We weren't.
can't hear you.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I read from the memo. Tell me if this is a repeat. During DAPR meetings, staff shared concerns regarding the extent of public benefits presented at the meeting. The proposed development, as several items listed in that summary of public benefits, were items that are required by ordinance or would be standard occurrences with development of the land. And so with acknowledgement of the economic benefits, what do you say about the lightness of the public benefits? Anybody? Anybody hear me?
I mean, from the developer, Alderman, the public benefits as they were listed in the DAPR meeting have changed considerably since, that time, that presentation and that meeting. We've added several items to the list. The collective resource arrangement was created after that, as well as all of the local hiring and the parking arrangement were all finalized after the DAPR meeting. So we've been working with staff pretty extensively since DAPR through the Plan Commission to increase the number of public benefits that we were providing.
Okay, so is this list of 13 public benefits in the memo the totality of your proposed public benefits? Or are there more that I'm not? No.
That's the staff memo.
So Alderman Suffredin, the items that are listed that from above where you just read are the items that are listed in the ordinance that are the proposed public benefits for the developer.
That's everything.
That's everything. There's a letter from the staff that's in the packet that includes some of the suggestions that we've made to the developer on additional public benefits to be included.
All right, what page is it on, just so I can find stuff?
I'm just pulling it up right now.
It's page 57 of the planning and development packet, and it says page 6 of 78. I assume that's for item P3.
So you said 56, Tom?
57 of 220 is the, yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at, unfortunately, I just have the whole packet, so I'm working with the 703 page.
Gotcha, okay, so if you get into the memo, there's 13 public benefits listed, and they were in the presentation.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with staff looking at these, like reconstructing the alley or the green wall or the safety measures in front of the building. I mean, those are really...
Well, things like the viaduct, I'd like to see the viaduct work done. It's not, I don't think it's not part of the project, but these viaducts are always an eyesore and a problem.
Agreed.
If they, we've had struggles with different other projects on getting the employment part met, but I think this is a little bit different in that it's ongoing operations of the building. So in other words, it's not like a short-term employment commitment other than the construction jobs. But I think there were 30 positions. Was it 30% of the positions are going to be Evanston residents?
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Carrie. Yes.
Okay. This, unfortunately, it's a very I've got an iPad and then I have a laptop, and the laptop's really old, so getting to the pages is a little bit of a challenge. I'm not quite used to having to scroll like this.
I guess my point is, while I certainly acknowledge the significant economic benefits, I feel like the public benefits here are a little bit light. And so I just want to be clear that if I'm going to support this, I would like to see that strengthened.
And one of the things, like I said, things like the viaduct, alley improvements, things like that, to me, those are more important than another divvy station. Not that divvies aren't, nice, but, I'd like to, I appreciate things that are different than kind of the usual suspects that, crop up in every proposal. And I do like the idea of a commitment on the employment part of it.
So can I get clarification on that? You said 30% of the construction contracts and then 5 jobs, and would that be?
No, you misheard me. It's, I think, 5 jobs for the construction project, but 30% of the building, like operations personnel, will be Evanston residents in the future.
Can the developer confirm that? Because I heard him say it the other way.
Well, maybe I misunderstood.
Alderman Wilson is correct. It's 30% of the permanent jobs in the building.
Okay, and then what percentage of construction contracts for the development?
So we did not specify the percentage of construction contracts for the development, but we did propose to bring in at least 5 local residents onto the construction site for jobs on constructing the project.
5. I would like to see, so I liked what I heard first from your colleague more. I thought I heard him say 30% of the contracts and 5 jobs. So
well, I don't think
No. I might have misspoke then. It's 5 jobs, construction tradesmen on the project, and 30% of the permanent jobs being offered in the building.
Sure.
okay.
So when you say 30%, what are the permanent jobs in the building? 30% of what number?
There are 30 full-time equivalent jobs in the building.
Okay, so we're talking about
10.
10 people.
So, yeah, and you know, the vacant for as long as I can remember, right? I voted against the 30-some story residential building. I didn't think that worked for a number of reasons. So I appreciate that this is something that I think is much more appropriate for the downtown. The issue with the drive-through has been an ongoing problem. We've negotiated. I even got involved a couple of times to try to, see if we could find a way for Chase to not insist on the drive-through, but they won't sell the property without the drive-through, so the drive-through has to be there. And, I think this, I think it's a pretty good building. So that's sort of the starting point. If we can have some more conversations over the next couple of weeks before we're up for, I think this is an introduction, before we're up for action to kind of adjust these public benefits, I'm interested in doing that. And I think there probably are some opportunities for that. But I just kind of want to get it, it's been so long. I think the economic environment is going to be changing, and I want us as a city and a community to be well positioned for when we kind of come out of this thing to be prepared to get businesses going. And I think this is a way to do that. So hopefully we can kind of push forward with this and make the adjustments over the next few weeks before the next meeting.
All right. Alderman Fisk, and then Alderman Rusimmons, and then Alderman Ravel. Alderman Fisk needs to unmute herself.
Yeah.
Tell me how I do that.
You've done it.
I gotcha.
Can you hear me now? Thank you. Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this building. I think by itself, the building is a beautiful building. I'm not sure it's the right building for this location. I have thoughts that predated the virus and post-date the virus. So my post-date questions are, I want to make sure if this is introduced at council that the developer has secured the necessary financing. And maybe that has been the case pre-virus, but I want to make sure that's still the case while we're in the virus. So, because some lenders are pulling back on construction projects, and I think that's information that we need to have. My general concerns about the building are several. I'm always been struggling, and I sat through the Plan Commission meeting and actually watched it again in reruns. I'm real concerned about the drive-through and about the cars entering in the middle of the building where you have people hopefully looking in active retail windows, but also cars entering and crossing the sidewalk in our bike lane. I understand that's a huge problem. I appreciate the fact that the developers have struggled with that, but I think it creates an unsafe situation, and I just don't see how we get around that. The use of that alley is very, very different than other alleys in downtown Evanston, because that is the main entrance for Bright Horizons daycare. And there are 300 kids in that daycare, and hopefully they will be back, but 300 kids who use that alley twice a day. So 600 vehicles, if you count one kid per vehicle, using that alley. And I think where the drive-through exits intersects in again, not a safe way with people entering and leaving that alley. So again, for those of you who haven't walked down that alley, various ingress and egress from parking areas and services to commercial make that alley real difficult. I am struggling with parking because I don't think the number of parking spaces on the site are enough, especially given the height of the building. I think when we're building a building this high, at least another floor of parking would have been preferable. And the setbacks, when you look at Davis Street, look west on Davis Street from Hinman, for example, the bike lanes have basically narrowed Davis Street, the visual aspect of Davis Street. And this building sits very close to the sidewalk, and I think is, again, going to create something of a canyon effect. The last thing I'll say is that I have never been a big fan of the concept in our zoning ordinance of the wedding cake. That is congregating all the tall buildings in the center of the downtown where we have them now massing together. I like the Paris approach a little bit better, which is moving the taller buildings a little bit further away. It eliminates the wind tunnel, concerned about Fountain Square, and adding any more wind to the downtown. Finally, and this is just my own personal preference, a glass building at night is going to be lit up like a flashlight. And I'm not sure that I'm ready for that. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my comments for the moment.
Thank you. So Alderman Simmons, then Alderman Ravel, then Alderman Nguyen. All right, Alderman Ravel, and then Alderman Nguyen.
Okay. Well, I guess I have to say that I really do like the building. I think it's appropriate in terms of its height and density for that location. I really like the way the podium relates to the university building next door. And I think that small scale, a 2-story podium is going to make a good pedestrian environment, a positive experience. Obviously, we really need a Class A office building to bring vitality. And I think I agree the drive-in ATM thing is really a headache, and but the project's really gotten rid of most of the drive-in, reducing 7 lanes to just down to 1. And it's adding really great commercial vitality to this block, which has been, the vacant lot has been vacant, and then the drive-through has been not an appealing commercial space. The parking is problematic in the sense that it isn't providing very many spaces, but I think the trends we're hearing about for parking demand in the future is all in this direction of providing less and less on site and encouraging people to take advantage of the mass transit, the public transit options that we have in the downtown. Now I come to my one concern, and that is, the number of site allowances that are being requested, and particularly the FAR, which is really so far greater than anything else in the downtown, I think really does say to us that we should be looking really closely at least at least in my view, one more substantial public benefit. And I guess I would like to throw out the idea of some kind of a contribution to our affordable housing fund as an additional public benefit to compensate for the really significant site allowances that are being requested.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Ravel. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For the most part, I agree with the positive comments. I very much appreciate the thoughtful design and the way that it has been made contextual with the older buildings that we have there. I think that when it's built, that will be even more appreciated. And I do appreciate the flexibility with designing that drive-through, looking ahead to when we no longer need one. So that I think that's an excellent thought. We do have a building in my ward that has a big, giant 4-lane drive-through that is now, the bank is gone. And so we have this big open gaping hole that we have to start thinking about reusing. So I think that's very forward-looking. I think the glass building actually will look very good. We do have a recent glass building at the corner of Main and Chicago, which residents really like quite a bit. It doesn't feel like a flashlight lit up at night. It actually, people comment on how beautiful it is, especially during the sunsets. That was a big surprise to me. So I think a glass building here, in contrast to the black Chase building, will be attractive in the downtown. But I do think that, as Alderman Ravel says, the FAR at 13.5 is very much denser, and it would be good to have some other significant additional public benefit. I like the idea of adding to the Affordable Housing Fund. I like the idea of looking at a viaduct, which are always a problem for us. So I'd like to hear more about that from the developer in the next 2 weeks. But otherwise, I like the building, and I think that we do need this office space. I also agree with Alderman Fisk that I would like to know about the financing picture, because as we all know, the world is changing every 24 hours. So I do think that's an important fact that we do need to know about as well. Those are my questions.
All right. Alderman Bruce Simmons, then Alderman Rainey.
Thank you. So I initially, in response to resident concern about timing and not being able to have a public process, was going to ask that we hold this, but jogging my memory and how much energy and effort has gone into addressing the initial concerns from this initial development. The jobs created, the opportunity for local contracting on the job site, and the design that my colleagues appreciate, the bird-friendly piece, anything sustainable. I appreciate it's downtown. It seems appropriate. I would like us to look at additional public benefit, and I think that I'm hearing that. So at what point would we discuss or determine public benefit?
So when's our next council meeting?
Could we discuss it more now, or will it be at council, or when?
Am I next?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm next.
I'm sorry. Okay, Ann. Sorry about that.
So I am okay moving forward and appreciate the response to the concerns about design, but I would like to have more discussion about public benefit. And so I would like to know when is the appropriate time to do that.
Why don't we let Alderman Rainey go, and then we'll have that. Is that all right with you, Alderman Simmons? If we let Alderman Rainey provide her comments, then we'll have a omnibus conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think now is the time to discuss public benefits if anybody has any good ideas. I think, given the fact that it has been 20 years since an office building has been built in downtown Evanston, now is the time to get everything off our chest and to make this the best building we can possibly make it. I agree with everything everybody said, and I want to focus on what Alderman Fisk said about the alley. First of all, the ATM is a drop-dead issue. We have to have the ATM. These people can't have the building if we don't have the ATM. So let's focus on the alley. I think that if the alley is as dangerous or potentially as dangerous as Alderman Fisk says it is, and I know it's a busy alley, and I know those children are dropped off and picked up several times a day, that we ought to require, and this could even be conceived or perceived as a public benefit, there needs to be a professional, quote unquote, crossing guard there for all the time during the day, every day, when there is traffic, and we certainly can determine when those times are. So I would absolutely require that. I think the glass building, I think the design is just spectacular. And I agree with Alderman Nguyen, the glass building at night at Main Street is really quite beautiful. But I think we should think about contributions to the city's general fund, given that we are $10 million in debt right now based on COVID-19. We have a reparations program in progress. Perhaps the developer can make some contribution there. I think committing to 30% jobs for permanent jobs, that's what they're committing to. Who knows? They might actually have 50%. So all those things are good. And the viaduct issue is absolutely essential. But I think we should pursue all of those things. But the alley, we need to have a commitment from the developer that the alley that pedestrians and automobile traffic will be protected at that alley. And I think we ought to have something by our next meeting to confirm that. And I would move that as an amendment to this ordinance.
All right. So is that an actual motion that requires?
Yeah, I'm making an amendment that they come back with. I don't even know if it has to be, because I think everybody should have to would agree to that. I mean, you can't have these cars coming and going without some kind of protection there. And I don't think a traffic signal is realistic. I think a professional type crossing guard, and not one that we hire to be at the corner of Ridge and Oakton. Not that kind of crossing guard.
All right. Is Nick Cummings still on this? Is that adequate for a motion? Or does it need to be more?
I am still here. I don't know.
I'm good at making motions. I'll be glad to make one if it's necessary. If the developer objects to coming back with something on that, I'll make a formal motion.
Okay. Here, what I'm hearing is that every member of this committee would like to see strengthened public benefits. Alderman Rainey has put forth something very specific. Do we want to do that as a proposed amendment, or do we want to just sort of send a general direction? Nick, maybe you can provide some guidance on what we can and can't do here.
It's my understanding that this particular ordinance is simply for introduction this evening. So there is still time for it to be amended before the council takes action on it. I don't know that Alderman Rainey needs to make a specific motion to make an amendment to it. It hasn't happened so far in my tenure here with the city when there have been changes to ordinances after they've been introduced in committee.
Alderman Wilson, you had your hand up.
Thanks. I think generally my thoughts are in line with what Nick just said. I think we should, and Alderman Rainey, it's a great idea. Everybody struggled with this issue of the drive-through. Certainly the drive-through in the building, it's a big improvement over what we have now. So we've got a bunch of lanes. It's not good. It's really bad. And this is an improvement. So it's not a perfect situation, but it's a significant improvement. So if we can have our engineer staff, I think they should also be in communication with Bright Start to talk about their hours and what they feel like they would need. And then just, loop the developers into that conversation and then come back to us with a suggestion on what the people that use the alley feel like what would work.
I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. Yep.
So if we kind of do that, and then I know we have a calendar, we have meetings on it, but that's all seemed to be upended. What realistically is our next meeting date going to be, if we know?
So I checked with the city manager, and it's April 27th is our next meeting.
Oh.
Okay, so it gives us some time to, have those conversations. Hopefully we can get that done and have something to put on the table for 27th.
So am I understanding that you want to hold it for introduction and return with public benefits, or move it?
I don't want to hold it.
Okay.
We want to introduce it.
Just want to make sure I understand.
Okay.
And I just have one more question on the development team. The 30% number, how did you arrive at that? Is that based on the nature of the jobs in the building? Is it just a number? If you could help me understand where you came to settle at 30% for Evanston resident employment.
Carrie, you're muted.
You're muted.
I see that. Luckily, it tells me that, which makes this go a little bit easier. I had a conversation with Sharon Johnson. We talked about both employment during construction as well as permanent positions. And it seemed like a reasonable number that we could strive to hit. That would take some work to do. So I think as I've seen it drafted in other ordinances, it has to do with the kind of quality level of the people that are coming forward from Evanston. But, this is the staff in the building, the management staff, the people manning the security desk in the lobby, as well as the cleaning staff that works in the building.
Alderman Simmons had her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. So I have a lot of questions and recommendations for public benefit. So I don't know that we have the discussion now, but if we move forward, being that it's a private development, that we can't enforce their compliance with local, or can we? Is there a way that we can enforce it? And I would be looking to do so. I wouldn't want a situation like Robert Crown, where we are millions of dollars into a development and a commitment to the local workforce, and then we're told that the workforce isn't there for whatever that skill set is of the job. So I just want to be clear moving forward as we make recommendations on public benefit that it will include some strong commitment for local hiring, local contractors on the development, as well as dollars into a fund to be determined. So I just want to make that point.
All right, so seeing no more hands raised, does this require a voice vote, or a roll call vote, or do we do a voice vote here?
You can do a voice vote.
Okay. All in favor of approving this for introduction, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so this item passes.
I think we have to make sure everybody's unmuted for this.
Okay. If everyone could make sure there's no little red microphone in the.
There's a lot of red microphones.
Yeah. When we see fewer of those, we'll.
I'm trying. There we go.
There we have Alderman Fisk. We have.
No.
All right. All right. We'll do this again. All in favor of approving this for introduction, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right. Alderman Fisk votes no. And then with everyone's permission, I'll circle back to item P2, which is let's see. You did that. Apologies. Item P2 is ordinances 38020, 39020, and 47020 Amendments to boards, committees, and commissions, the Plan Commission, ZBA, and Design and Project Review Committee. Staff recommends City Council adoption of ordinances 38020, 39020, and 47020 with changes to the City Code regarding the establishment of the chair of the ZBA and Plan Commission, the inclusion of the most recently adopted comprehensive plan, and revisions to the membership of the Design and Project Review Committee. This is for introduction.
Second.
All right. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
And I think 605 Davis Development folks can leave the meeting. I don't know if they're capable.
You don't need us anymore, right?
Yeah, you're welcome to stay, but you are free to go.
I'll give up my seat for somebody else. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, Tom?
Yes, Alderman Fisk.
Okay, so I guess I'm not remembering what the reason was for the mayor to be appointing the chair of, is it Plan Commission and ZBA? Why aren't they selected by the committee as a whole?
If I could weigh in, I believe this was, oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Ravel, that was your reference.
Well, the ZBA, I think, traditionally did have its chair appointed by the mayor. And then I guess it got, I think maybe that's even still been the practice, but it got dropped from the code. So this would be putting it back in the code. I think running these public hearings for Plan Commission and ZBA, these are really complex meetings with a lot of different phases, and it takes a real skill, I think, to run these meetings. And the idea, for example, that the chair, the way it's currently written, the chair could be a new chair every year. And I really think the chair of those two bodies, it really benefits if that person has the experience of 2 or 3 years, and to keep those really long meetings moving along smoothly, allowing relevant public comment at the appropriate times. It just, I think making sure that we have really people who are really good at running meetings become the chair of those two groups, I think would be really helpful.
Tom?
Alderman Fisk?
Yes, thanks. No, thanks. Well, I guess my concern is that I'm council liaison to both, I think both Preservation and Plan Commission, but I've been, Plan Commission really does follow, I think, the rules fairly well. And I'm a little bit concerned about what this says to the commission, which is we don't trust you guys to select the chair that you all have agreed upon. I just don't think I feel comfortable with the sort of silent message that sends to the Plan Commission. So I think anybody can step forward and run a pretty good meeting. And I think if they didn't run a good meeting, they'd be criticized by the other members of the board. So again, I just don't feel comfortable with it.
Johanna, you had your hand up.
Sure. So part of the thinking here was that often the chair is sort of the last man or woman standing on the Plan Commission. In my experience, when I was on the Plan Commission, it went to somebody who had served on the Plan Commission for the longest period of time. So you often then had somebody cycling off, and that has been the pattern over the past few years. Somebody serves for 1 year as the chair, and then they're off. And then you lose that sort of institutional memory of the experience. So I think this was trying to get at getting somebody in for a couple of years who could help run a meeting and maintain some of the consistency across the board with meetings.
All right. Does anybody else have a comment on this before we vote? If not, It's been moved and seconded and discussed. All in favor, or first, we're all unmuted. Perfect.
Alderman Suffredin, can you take each ordinance? There's one.
Okay,
Just
sure.
make you're taking them separately.
All right. So let's see here. The first one is
So 38020 is the one that addresses the Plan Commission.
38020 addressing the Plan Commission. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? No.
No.
All right, 2 no's. Please include me there. 39020, which is DBA. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
No.
All right, 2 no's there. And 47020, which is Denver. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
No. I will be the no on that one. All right. So we have P2 and P3 are done. Item P4 is ordinance 52020, special use for a planned development located at 1555 Ridge Avenue. The Plan Commission staff recommend adoption of ordinance 52020 for approval of a special use for a planned development. The proposal includes the following site development allowances. 1, a 3-foot setback along the north property line with 15 feet is required for dwelling units. 2, no landscaping or a 10-foot transition landscape strip is required along the north property line. And 3, a 10 by 25-foot loading space with a 1.5-foot rear yard setback or a 10-foot by 35-foot loading space with a 3-foot rear yard setback is required. This is for introduction. A second.
Second.
Okay. All right. Are we going to have Alderman Wilson?
I think, is there a presentation first? I'll have my comments if there's after the presentation, if there's a presentation.
I just added the development team in.
Okay, there they are. Okay, I didn't see that.
So, Talar, is it your screen that'll be showing?
Yes.
So if you select share your screen, then it will allow us to see your screen.
All right. And do we anticipate this being how long? Is 10 minutes enough time?
We can make that work.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll go first. My name's Tom Metter, principal of Michigan Avenue Real Estate Group. And we have been in the apartment development business for a long time. The last 8 years, have been building alternatives to high rises, which are mid-rise buildings. Mid-rise is not a novel concept, but we don't invest in amenities. We found that there's a subset of renting people who prefer a more subdued lifestyle. So we invest more heavily in the interiors and in the finishes. And these aren't luxury units, if you will, but they are buildings with a strong focus on where people spend most of their time. We also strive to get close to one-on-one parking, even though there's a lot of TOD discussions these days. We found people still need cars. And we provide a very hands-on concierge type of property management service. When we started our, Pilar, you want to move to the next?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, you want to go? When we began our development conceptualizing, we looked at how we would line up with the city's comprehensive plan, and we saw that there was a good degree of alignment. These are the points that within the plan that we put our building against. If you go to the next slide, Talar. Sure. Similarly, with the downtown plan, we're building a 5-story, 68-unit apartment building on a parking lot that is not, in our view, the appropriate use for this location within the city. And the downtown plan recommends a 68-story building. We're actually building a 5-story, 68-unit multifamily building. So we felt we had a good alignment with both the downtown plan and the comprehensive plan. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our architect, Jay Keller.
Joanna, it looks like he's not doesn't have access. He was removed from the meeting.
Why don't we see if he can come back in? Can you ask him to rejoin?
Oh, he says he has rejoined. I think he's getting a message that says the administrator needs to let him in.
So right now I don't see him as trying to get in. So
okay,
as soon as he pops up on the screen as being allowed to come in, I can let him in.
Okay. He just sent me a screenshot. It says, "You are unable to rejoin the meeting. Were previously removed by the host."
Oh. Okay. Let me see if we can sort this out. Can you guys keep going? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, Tom, I can go ahead and just explain a little bit. You know, obviously Jay is the architect and was planning on going a little bit deeper into the architecture, but I'm sure we can handle any detailed questions at the end if there are any. But the slide just shows our site location. You can see us there at the corner of Ridge and Grove. It's a bit of a gateway to the downtown, so we're hoping to put an attractive building where, you know, a vacant underutilized parking lot sits now, as a way to, you know, put more residents in an area to support retail and commercial uses downtown. So this is our site plan, and this shows the amount of landscaping we've been able to put on this site. This developer is very committed to providing as much green space as possible on their sites. And then one thing I'd like to point out is you'll see on the north side there's a very small 3-foot, within the 3-foot setback. Initially that was just paved, but we decided to put a little bit more landscaping there based on feedback from the residents to the north, and that was well received at Plan Commission. And there's a more detailed site plan on the next slide, so I won't go through. So here you'll see the more detailed site plan. The green again shows the landscape setbacks, and the pink is our ground floor unit, which we put into the plan after feedback from Dapper indicating that they wanted us to activate the ground floor. So you'll see there is a front door there on Ridge for that lone unit, as well as a patio for that resident. That is a 1-bedroom unit. And the addition of that unit also induced us to consolidate one of the units on the upper floors, and we'll show you that as well. But you'll see here a majority of the parking is internal. There are 14 parking spaces external. 2 of the external parking spaces are reserved for guest parking. And then we have an exterior loading space right off of the alley there that is 10 by 25 feet. It's one of our development allowances. We've asked that is reduced because we do not expect to have any loading vehicles that are larger than that 25-foot mark. I'm sorry to interrupt myself, but Jay says, our architect says that he's still getting the same error message. I don't know what, if anything.
Yeah, Talar, I just asked him for an alternative email via their email. So if he said, I don't know what exactly is going on. So if he can send me like a non-work email, I can try to. I've invited him twice now. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I just asked him to do that. And now my screen, okay. So I will go ahead and keep going. Let me see if there's anything more. The other thing that I should point out here is this bump out. We added this bump out here. That was also based on feedback from the community because they were dealing with folks turning very quickly onto Grove from Ridge, and they wanted, something to prevent that, and from Grove to Ridge, and then also to prevent vehicles from stopping at that corner and causing traffic issues there. So hopefully that bump out will help that situation a little bit. And then you'll see that access on Grove, that's where the package room is, etc. Our plan is to encourage delivery vehicles to use the visitor spaces to divert that kind of traffic blockage from Grove. We understand that's a very sensitive area for the neighbors. We had also suggested potentially asking our property manager, we have a 24-hour property manager, which I believe Tom mentioned, to help schedule moving in times, sort of off-peak hours during the day, so that if delivery vehicles do have the ability to use the loading space, then that they will be able to do that. But of course, having moves scheduled will allow the property manager to prevent folks from blocking that loading space in the event a move is scheduled, so that we don't have additional traffic blocking that alley.
I think I just added Jay back into the meeting.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I think I just added Jay back.
Oh, good.
I don't know if he's there. Maybe not. Okay, sorry.
Okay, he says he does not have an alternative email address. Oh boy. I don't know how to fix it.
Okay, keep going. I'm still working on it.
Okay, keep going. I think Tom and I can probably answer the architectural questions, but we will see. Oh boy. Can you guys still hear me? Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. So the other thing I'll point out is we put some bike spaces over here, some external bike spaces for the community, for anybody to use really, and they're screened from our parking area with some more landscaping. Oh, and I was saying that all of the garbage is internal. And again, this is something that Tom's folks deal with all the time. They like to keep their garbage internal to keep rodent issues at bay, make sure everything's clean. And so the property manager will cart the garbage out toward one of the entrances in the garage, and then garbage pickup will take place on the first floor in the alley. Or excuse me, in our exterior parking area. Okay, so this is the conventional layout. The hashed line here that shows the yellow and the pink unit combined, those are the two units that we combined to keep our unit count at 68 when we added the first floor unit. The other thing that I didn't mention that the first floor unit did do is it reduced our parking numbers by 4 spaces, but we still meet the required parking that's required for this plan development here, regardless of that reduction. So it's mostly 2-bedroom units. There are a few ones and studios as well. And this is our rendering. You'll see the landscaping, you'll see the bump out, and you'll see the large windows both along Ridge and Grove. Those were also additions that we made based on feedback, because they wanted to make sure that those frontages looked, friendly to pedestrians, and we didn't have small windows. They will be glazed, however, so that folks, straight into a parking garage. And do we have some more? We do. I think we have our elevations. The elevations were also amended significantly through the DAPR process and through conversations with historical preservation folks. There used to be partitions between the balconies. Those were removed to keep the facade a little bit cleaner. We added broader, I don't know how to say that, but the decorative detail, the floor and the top of the first floor were widened to add more detail to the elevations. And I believe also, based on conversations with historic preservation, we revised the material of the balcony railings to match the historic district a little bit better. And this, I'm sorry, this is the alley view. That's why those tiny windows are there. None of this will be visible from the street. The larger windows along the corners are also there so that folks walking along Grove, if they look down the alley, they'll see larger windows as they walk by. This is the west elevation. Again, those larger windows are apparent entrances as well. Were accentuated. And this is the north side, again with the larger windows on the corners. And then this is the entrance, the south elevation that shows the Grove Street entrance.
All right, is that it, or is there?
There is a very little bit more. We're going to go through project data and the site development allowances and our public benefits. So I'll skip through this. You guys already know the details of the project. 68 units. It's 57 parking spaces, etc. But I'll talk about our site development allowances. We're asking for 2 development allowances. One is, I already mentioned, the loading space from 35 to 25 feet, which we think is more than adequate for the size of trucks that we expect for the move-ins that we see in many of our buildings. And then the other is to reduce the north side setback from the required 15 feet to 3, and to eliminate the 10-foot landscape setback. So just one important detail here is that this was not a planned development. Generally in this zoning district, a resident.
Hello. Talar, are you there?
We may have lost our Tom.
I can finish this. If we can get the slide to move, Joanna. I'll tell you what. The rest of the presentation talked about the changes that we made at the request of DAPR and with public comment. And then we talked about our public benefits. And that very quickly, the project specific benefits are 3 affordable units that will be providing $525,000 into the inclusionary fund. Real estate taxes are going to increase about $400,000, but we are also doing, we're going to honor the Monarch Pledge, which at a cost of about $20,000 and an annual maintenance of $2,500. We're putting 7 exterior bicycle spaces. We're contributing $20,000 to Alexander Park or whatever Evanston decides is more appropriate. The bump out is an $8,000 expenditure. We're going to replace the alley from Grove to Davis at a cost of about $20,000, and then we're going to add some striping. So that was the rest of the presentation. We'll cut it off and turn it over to you for questions.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Alderman Wilson?
So not so much questions, and thank you for the presentation. A couple of things that have kind of evolved through the course of the process, and the big concern I guess I wanted to raise was the issue with regard to parking. And I understand where the prior committees were coming from with regard to the desirability of a more active streetscape and such. But really what's of probably the biggest concern for neighbors and residents in the area is the concerns about the parking. So what I would like to see happen, and I think what makes the most sense, and having, if you really think about it intuitively, having a ground floor unit that faces Ridge and has a little patio facing Ridge, that's, I wouldn't want to hang out like on Ridge. I just can't kind of really imagine how that's going to be a particularly desirable space for somebody all in. And I think what makes the most sense would be to recapture those parking spaces that were otherwise lost. So I would like to see the proposal go back to, the redesign, the look, appearance, all that's appreciated, wouldn't change that. But just to kind of take that ground floor unit back out, replace it with those parking spaces as part one. And the other thing would be, historically, what we're seeing is buildings that are fully compliant for parking end up with extra spaces. So rather than require the developer to come back at a later point in time, what I would like to do is to build into this ordinance permission to rent spaces that are not otherwise rented by the tenants to people in the neighborhood. The building is replacing an existing parking lot. So to the extent that they do end up with extra spaces, I think they likely will. I would want them to have the ability to go ahead and rent those to neighboring residents to kind of take some of that burden off. So I would like to make, and Tom, you're nodding your head. So are those two things that you think you could accomplish?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so and so we're transparent going into the next thing. This is for introduction. I would like to make a motion at this point to change those two things. So I would move that we have the developer take out the ground floor unit, replace it with the prior parking, and also that they be granted permission to rent unused spaces to residents living in the neighborhood.
Second.
Lots of muted, a bunch of muted nods.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
All right.
I seconded. Yeah.
Anybody think that's an issue or a problem?
Sounds good.
Okay. So should we vote on the amendment first?
Oh, excuse me, Alderman Sufferton. I think Carl Klein is in the waiting room and wanted to speak.
Okay. Why don't we?
We should have, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
vote on anything.
Why don't we do this? Since we missed the public comment before, should we do this? Alderman Wilson's motion. Should we vote on that? Then bring Carl in?
Let's just hold on to it for a second and let him comment. I don't want to vote
So
on it.
if you can let Carl in. All right. Hey, Carl, if welcome, if you could unmute yourself, and I know you've got public comment down. So if, go ahead and keep it in the 3-minute neighborhood, that'd be great.
I seconded. Yeah.
Do you think that's an issue?
Carl, oh, we lost you. Carl, are you there? Okay. Welcome, Carl.
Excuse me, Alderman Sufferton.
Yeah.
I think Carl.
Oh. All right, so we got a little bit of a delay. Carl, whenever you're ready. Or Luke, is there?
Yeah, that was. I think Carl has probably got channel 16 or YouTube on, so that's just the delay.
Okay.
So I don't. Maybe Carl can hear us now. And
Sorry, I had YouTube on. Can I talk now?
Yeah, Carl, please go ahead. If you can keep it in the 3-minute neighborhood, that'd be great. But,
sure. Basically, my public comment is that I think that it's pretty misguided right now for the city to be discussing planned developments, because we're in the midst of a global pandemic and the focus of most Evanstonians now is on that crisis. And I don't think that this is being very open and transparent. I mean, I get that you want to have meetings still, but how many public comments have you had? Probably not that many since you've gone to virtual. And I don't, the access to internet, the access to Zoom is very limited. I don't think that this is very inclusive. And if you're trying to ramrod through developments right now in the midst of a global pandemic just to try to get tax revenue, if you have a projected $10.5 million deficit, that's severely misguided. And also, a lot of these developments are not providing a lot of public benefits, and they are asking for a lot of major variances, which, as you know, that's just crazy. I mean, you should be asking for a lot more. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. People are losing jobs, people's health. Come on, that should be the focus. Why are we focused on developments right now? It's misguided. That's it. Sorry, I'm very frustrated.
Appreciate it, Carl. Thank you for joining. All right. Alderman Wilson, I'm sorry. Let's go back to your motion.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me? Is it just me, or do we all have this screen with something?
Addressing Dapper comments is what I did on my screen.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I'm on screen sharing. It's
Did I get rid of it? I can get
There we
rid of
go.
it.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
All right, back. Yes, thank you, Alderman Suppin. Yeah, I'd like just renew the motion that we do those two things. Have them remove the ground floor unit, replace it with the parking, and that they be given permission to rent unused space, unrented spaces to people in the neighborhood. And I think there was a second.
There's been a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That's everybody.
Okay, and then I would like to move that we introduce it as amended.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alderman Simmons, if you could unmute.
aye.
Okay. That's everybody. All right. So that passes. Thank you. All right, moving along. Our next item here is, we're moving on to item P5. Thank you, Talar and Tom. I think
Yes, I know.
you can go now, right?
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to stay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So item P5 is ordinance 42-020, extending the time for the applicant to obtain a building permit for 2425 Oakton Street. Staff recommends City Council adoption of ordinance 42-020, granting approval of the plan development for 2425 Oakton Street for a car wash. Originally approved on April 22nd, 2019. The ordinance would grant an extension of 1 year for a building permit to be issued and construction to begin. No other changes to the existing plan development are proposed. The interim city manager recommends suspension of the rules for introduction and action at the April 13th, 2020 City Council meeting. This is for introduction and action. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Are there any comments?
No.
All right. So do we need to vote on the suspension of the rules? And all right. So the first vote will be on the suspension of the rules. Does that need to be a roll call vote, Nick, or is that?
It does need to be a roll call vote, and it does need to be unanimous.
Okay. So I will go in the order on my screen. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
All right. And I vote aye as well. So that is for the suspension of the rules. And now on the actual item, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody. All right. So that item P5 passes. Next up, items for discussion.
Wait, P6?
I think you're on the council agenda.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. All right. So the next is items for discussion. Does anybody have items for discussion? Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. This, I guess, is unrelated to planning and development, but as we, to the commenter's point about the crisis that our city and our residents are in right now and moving forward with committee meetings, can we get a response from either our city manager or our city attorney on what meetings we are having during this shelter in place? Because there are some important committee agenda items that are being tabled during this time, and how are we determining what is essential and non-essential, and how we are moving forward with committee meetings? If we could just have a response to that.
Eventually, right? Not this second.
So, go ahead. Sorry, Nick.
No, I actually was looking for guidance from the city manager's office as well on that to answer your question, Alderman Simmons. But it's my understanding that as we move forward, given that the governor has given permission for us to operate in this fashion for now, that we intend to continue to move forward with the legislative agenda for city council.
And
So there's a city council meeting on the 27th, and I would assume that the committee meetings before that meeting would still go forward.
So how are we determining what we're canceling? So we're having only standing committee meetings and no other committee meetings. Specifically, like we've canceled reparation meetings because of the shelter in place. We're not going to be doing it virtually. And the response is we're only having essential meetings. If it's not city council, we're in committee right now. I'm asking for a response on what meetings we will be having going forward.
Alderman Simmons, we've let the city manager know. I think she was wrapping up some stuff at the EOC right now at the Emergency Operations Center. So perhaps we could take your question into the city council meeting so everyone could have the benefit of getting her answer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other items for discussion? Seeing none. Items for communication from anybody? Or somehow different? All right, in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Oh,
Second.
okay.
Luke.
Luke.
Sorry, I just wanted to remind everyone that there will be a different link and login information for the regular city council meeting, and you should have all received that invite in your Google Calendar. But if you need it, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, what time are we starting that meeting?
We're scheduled to start at 6 p.m.
Okay, so.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So motion to adjourn has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. See you all in 20 minutes.